executive director of the new Office of Workforce Strategy and Development, and you all are the new board, which is very exciting. That was created last year in Act 146. A little bit of a slight revision to the agenda. I hope you all got it. And just a couple of protocols to go over that, as you just saw, were being recorded per Vermont's open meeting law. And it will be posted to both YouTube, and then we'll have a link on our website as well. And we'll have draft minutes up shortly by the end of the week, hopefully. And I'll also get those links out to the board members as well. We won't be actively monitoring the chat because there's so much going on, but if you have something you want to say or a question or anything, please raise your hand and one of us will call on you. And we'll do that. And then also if you can keep your mics muted until it's time to talk, because that just minimizes background noise and puppies and things like that, right? So before we get started with introductions, I wanted to ask if anybody had any questions or comments about this, about the meeting, today's meeting. I know there's a couple of people who are listening in who are not board members, but if I'll just be quiet now, I'll let you talk if you have any questions or comments.
May I just say, it's so exciting. I mean, Kendall and I have just texted and said, isn't this exciting? So those of us who've been involved in this restructuring are really excited, Sabina. So congratulations on our first new state workforce development board meeting.
It's exciting. It really is. I didn't sleep well last night. Anyway, anybody else want to bring anything up before we jump right in? Okay. So as you see on our new agenda, our first item is board introductions. And I will start, lucky Mike up in the corner there. I'll start with you and ask you to say your name and your company. And if you feel like it, one thing you hope for with the board as a goal.
So I'm assuming I'm the mic. Usually there's more than one of us in a room, but
There's 3 or 4 of us. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'm in my corner, so I didn't know which corner. I can go first if you want, but.
Let's go say Mike Hulbert if I'm pronouncing it correctly. Okay, and yeah, sorry about that. And then we'll come across to you, Mike. Okay. And go ahead, Mike Hulbert. You're on mute. You're on mute. Yeah.
Mike, you're muted.
Mike's right in the fact that everybody has different corners, and I've got a puppy in the background, so if you hear some background noise, that's him. That's why I'll mute right afterwards. But I worked for HP Cummings Construction Company for 43 years, pretty boring life. I didn't go far, but ended up taking over the company about 7-8 years ago. Now I'm retired. So I'm really interested, especially in the construction field of a workforce development. We've been working on it for years in the background, but it's great to come forward. So just if you have any questions of me, feel free to email or text or whatever. So thank you.
Senator Clarkson, you're next.
Oh, well, brave new world. Allison Clarkson, I'm one of the 3 senators representing the Windsor District. I'm currently chair of Senate Economic Development, Housing, and General Affairs, and have been involved in that capacity in that committee, not as chair, but as vice chair for many years. I carried the workforce sort of portfolio in the committee. And I am so excited to have been involved in our Special Oversight Committee on Workforce Expansion and Development, SOCWED, and really, I love workforce, and as an issue for us, it's so full of opportunity and investing in the future of our state. And I'm just so pleased to continue to be involved in this newly restructured board. So it's an exciting day for some of us who've been invested in this piece of the work.
Thank you. And now, Mayor Mike, your turn. Sorry about that.
No worries, no worries at all. Mike Dunges, I'm the Rutland City Mayor. I actually am into my second term now, just the beginning of it, so a little over 2 years. I spent about 24 years in the IT services industries prior to getting into local government. So I'm actually really excited about workforce development as a whole. It's something that I've seen different paths and avenues to, and I think technology is a big part of that conversation, whatever that technology happens to be. And I'm just excited to see how we move forward. It's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil, you're next in the windows.
Okay, I think I'm the Bill you're talking about. Bill Cunningham. I retired from the Vermont Air National Guard as superintendent of the 229th Information Operations Schoolhouse in Northfield, and then took an about face and stepped into a transportation role as the regional director for Tri-Valley Transit in the Addison region. I am heavily invested in workforce development here at Tri-Valley Transit and know the challenges throughout the state. I'm super excited that I'm part of this and looking for all opportunities to invest in the future of Vermont.
Thank you, Bill. Tiffany?
Hi, everybody. I'm Tiffany Walker. I usually am the only Tiffany in the room, so I'm looking around. Haven't seen Tiffany Bloomley in a while. So I am the Senior Director of Workforce at the Community College of Vermont. Really happy to see the board restarting in this new way. And as Senator Clarkson said, it's just a really exciting time to be working in workforce, and I'm looking forward to how we all do it together.
Thank you. And Phil Collins.
Hi, everybody. Phil Colling. I'm the Executive Director of Serve Vermont, Vermont State Service Commission, and we primarily oversee AmeriCorps grants, and we're interested in building service to career pathways that can help solve all of our workforce needs. So thrilled to be here.
Thank you, Phil. Chris Loso.
How you doing? Chris Loso. I'm actually the owner of Loso's Janitorial. I moved back up to Vermont in 2014 for a little while. I actually live in Baltimore, Maryland, but I spend more time in Vermont than I do in Maryland. So I still consider myself a Vermonter and pay taxes up there for sure. Before I worked at Loso Janitorial, I was in consulting for 22 years with KPMG, with Deloitte. I was a partner at Booz Allen Hamilton before I made the move over. And like Mike, I was in the IT side of the house, but on the human side of the IT in terms of what the changes are for people. I'm particularly excited about being on board. I actually was approached a long time ago. I think it was Chip Walker or Chip. Can't remember who was the head of the Workforce Development Board way back then. It was called something else. But over the years, what I've noticed is it's become more and more of a challenge in terms of Chip Evans. That's right, Chip Evans, who had approached me. We had lunch a long time ago, back in 2006. And one of the things that I've seen over the years is the fact that it's become more and more of a challenge in terms of trying to grow our workforce here in the state. So I'm excited to see this new and reinvigorated board to tackle those challenges. So I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Amanda, you're next to Chris.
Hi, good morning. My name is Amanda Shangra. I'm the owner of Bergamot and More in Williamstown, Vermont. We are a leather workshop, and we predominantly make handbags, but a lot of different items. Our business has grown exponentially. It started in the middle of COVID by accident, and every year we're doubling. So we're seeing really wild growth. And I'm really excited to be a part of this team. I have lots of opinions and I don't know where to channel them. So I think this might be a good fit.
This is a good place to start.
For having me. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Amanda. Erin Tomlinson.
Hey, everybody. I'm Aaron Tomlinson. I'm Director of Workforce Development at the Hartford Area Career and Technology Center. I've worked in tech ed for 18 years now and pretty passionate about what the youth can do with the workforce. And so we do that. I'm also part of the Vermont Adult Ed Association as well. So I have a couple of interests that this workforce will be that I'll bring to the workforce.
Thank you. How about Jim Sullivan next, who I've known forever too?
Hi, thanks, Amanda. My name is Jim Sullivan. I am a recently elected member of the Bennington Select Board. I retired a couple of years ago from a position as executive director of the Bennington County Regional Commission. It's the regional planning commission in our area. And during that time, I oversaw the integration of the Regional Planning Commission and the Regional Development Corporation in our region, as well as the collaboration with our economic development partners in Windham County to develop the Southern Vermont Economic Development Zone and develop a number of economic development strategies for the region and for the whole of Southern Vermont. And all of them started and ended with the need to address workforce issues. So I'm very happy to continue that effort in this role. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Rob Terry.
Hi, thanks. Rob Terry. I'm the executive director of Merck Forest and Farmland Center in southwestern Vermont. Kind of looking over the pre-materials, I'm excited about a lot of the scope of work that the board is involved in. To get hyper specific, I'm particularly interested in engaging Vermont youth in our working lands, particularly as it relates to adaptive management in the face of global change. Thanks.
Thank you. Ronnie Baston.
Hi, I'm Ronnie Basden. I'm the executive director at Vermont Works for Women, and we work with youth through women in adulthood to really help build career exploration and job skills training. So I really look forward to being a part of the board and working with you all and diving into all workforce conversations.
Mark Desereau, if I pronounced it correctly.
Yeah, you got it. Mark Desereau, the president and owner of Desereau Machines. We're a precision machining and fabrication company and currently located in Barrie, Vermont, and in the process of moving to Berlin, Vermont. We do a lot of work for the food industry, semiconductor industry, a little bit of aerospace, and some military work as well. Really interested to get involved in workforce development. It's something that a lot of companies in our industry are concerned about, and looking forward to help out in any way I can.
Thank you, Mark. Betsy Bailey.
Hi, Betsy Bailey, owner of Little Dippers Doodle Children's Center in St. Johnsbury, and I'm very excited to have this opportunity as I sit on a board, a couple of different boards, but one of them is at our local high school, Linden Institute, which has a CTE program, and getting the youth more involved in the workforce and getting these programs built up so we have a good workforce labor. Because in early childhood, it's very hard to find good quality people, employees that want to stay long term and early childhood. And that's the biggest thing is continuity of care for children is making sure we get the right people in there so they stay in the workforce.
Thank you for that. Oops, I just did something I didn't mean to. Hang on a minute. Darn it. Let's see, Jill Olson.
Hi, everybody. Thanks. I'm Jill Olson. I am the executive director of the VNAs of Vermont, which is the trade association for home health and hospice agencies. I believe I'm on this board representing all of healthcare. I'm not sure there's anybody else from healthcare here. Oh, good. Okay. Oh, phew. Not just me. in addition to my role with the VNAs of Vermont, I facilitate a coalition of trade associations that really spans the entire healthcare and long-term care systems, and have also previously worked for the Hospital Association. So I have a lot of experience in the healthcare sector. And of course, we have workforce needs that are both licensed and unlicensed. So we have a really wide range of needs and employ a lot of people as a sector. So I'm really appreciative that I've been entrusted with healthcare on this group. Luckily, there is a special subcommittee that also meets with more representatives.
Thank you, Jill. Secretary Curley?
Hi, everyone. I'm Lindsay Curley. I'm the Secretary of the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. And just to tell you very quickly, we have 3 departments that are within the agency, all working diligently to help with our workforce needs. The Department of Tourism and Marketing not only promotes our state to visitors, but they're working hard to recruit workforce to our state, workers to our state. We have the Department of Housing and Community Development who are working to bring houses online. So we have a place to put the workers when they get here, or to keep workers that we already have in our state who are looking for permanent housing solutions. And we have the Department of Economic Development who work really close with businesses who are navigating a host of challenges that come about when you're trying to run a business. So I guess my goal is simple. It's just really ensuring that our workforce strategies align with the needs of our businesses, and making sure that we can meet the economic growth objectives that we have across the state. Sorry to go on a little bit long here, but prior to this role, I spent 3 years as the Commissioner of Labor. So I have further workforce development experience there. But also, like Chris Loso, I'm a former KPMG alum, so have some tie there as well. But Sabina, what a amazing team that has been brought together here. I'm very humbled and honored to serve alongside such an amazing group of people, diverse skill sets represented here, and I'm excited to see what we can do.
Thank you for that, Secretary. Yeah, it's going to be exciting. You're right. Representative Marcotte?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Marcotte. I'm from Coventry. I'm a state representative, and I serve as the chair of Commerce and Economic Development. I've spent my entire legislative career in commerce, and I'm in my 21st year now. I started out as just a legislator. I spent 10 years as the vice chair, and now I'm in my 7th year as the chair. In 2015, my committee lost, I guess you could say, the utilities. We used to have jurisdiction over utilities and telecommunications, and we swapped that for workforce. And so we've been working very closely with Department of Labor, with the Agency of Commerce, in making these changes that got us to a 27-member board instead of a 63-member board. So I see this as a real opportunity for us to move forward and looking at all things workforce, not just in the WIOA space. And with Sabina giving us direction, I think we can really go far with this. So I'm really excited. Also, we are really focused on career technical education, and during this time of changing governance and changing the funding structure for education, my committee's charge in the House is to oversee the career technical education changes that need to be done. So again, excited. I think we've got fantastic people on this board. And by the way, I am also own a convenience store. If you hear some chirping in the background when I'm speaking, that's just my gas pumps, people looking for gas. So with that, I'll turn it over. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Jeremy, may I call on you next? Jeremy White?
You may. Good morning. I am currently the work-based learning coordinator at Riverbend in Bradford. I'm very pleased to be here. I'll be honest, I'm a kid from the kingdom. Grew up in the construction business. Graduated from college at 35 and ended up in education, and I'm in my 19th year. I fell in love with Act 77 in 2014 and am really kind of passionate about especially developing pathways for high school kids and being able to see their way hopefully into the kingdom and remaining there and developing a strong workforce. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here and work with all of you.
Thank you. And I think I've gotten the board members on Teams, so I would turn to the room. Did I miss somebody?
You also have Secretary Saunders.
Oh, excuse me. I thought, thank you. Secretary Samuelson?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Zoe Saunders. I'm the Secretary of Education. Proud to be part of this committee. At the Agency of Education, we are very focused on expanding college and career readiness for our students, and that involves promoting our career and technical education programs and aligning our training to the industry needs in Vermont. I come to this role with experience in expanding workforce development programs for youth and also supporting upskilling for adults, and have been part of a national cohort under the Biden administration to really evaluate how we can develop really great jobs and connecting industry and education in ways that are very supportive of overall economic development and prosperity for our students and also our adults who are interested in shifting careers. So very much happy to be part of this committee and look forward to working with everyone.
And I missed Valerie Bodette. Bodette, if I'm pronouncing it correctly?
Bodette. Yep. So I'm Valerie Bodette. I own the Ladder One Grill and the Firehouse Inn in Barre, Vermont. I've been in business for about 16 years. So I'm hoping to bring my knowledge of the food and lodging industry to growing our workforce development. And like Amanda, I have a lot of opinions. I've written quite a few letters to the governor and Mr. Harrington. So I'm hoping that I can bring some knowledge to this committee and help us grow our workforce here in the state because we need it. Thank you.
Secretary Samuelson?
Yeah, good morning. I'm Jenny Samuelson. I'm the Secretary for the Agency of Human Services. The breadth of our agency between healthcare and on-the-ground human services and communities for both our clients and for the organizations that serve our clients that we work very closely with. The workforce needs are paramount and significant. And so we're here to be a part of the solutions. And Jill, I'll join you in helping to represent the healthcare space.
Oh, phew, thank you.
Keeping with the board members, I'm not ignoring you, Jay Ramsey. I thought we would turn to the board members in the room and begin with you, Rebecca.
So I'll join you, healthcare folks. My name is Rebecca. You can call me Becky Capsalis. I actually came to the great state of Vermont as an undergrad at UVM and chose to come back here in 2000 to raise my family and work here. I've been an HR professional for 25 years in Vermont, and during that whole time have had recruitment or workforce in my purview or as part of my job. Most recently, for the past 13 years, I've been leading talent acquisition for the UVM Health Network. So starting at UVM MC, we at our height of needs, height of vacancy, had about 2,000 open positions. Every day of the week, it's actually dropped a bit. We're now at about 1,400. But have a huge need for workforce, not just nursing or physicians, but positions in radiology, the lab, respiratory therapies. I feel strongly that we should have tech programs in high schools that prepare young people for these careers. You know, right out of high school, we've got plenty of opportunity. So this is my second term. I'm really hoping that we can make some great momentum. I feel like we had great ideas that we didn't necessarily see come to fruition during our first term. So I am optimistic and excited about the work.
Thank you. Thank you. And I turn to you, Derek.
Good morning. My name is Derek Martins. I run a small or medium-sized construction company in central Vermont. Company has actually been in business for 65 years. And, you know, we're watching our workforce age out. And so I actually grew up here in Vermont and was part of a, tech, we call it construction tech at the time. But, I know a lot of those are, going away, moving to different schools. So I'm here, I'd like to advocate for the trades. And, I just see great opportunity for a lot of these Vermont kids in the trades. Make a great living doing it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I'm excited.
Yeah. And Mr. Bellows, our chair.
Yeah, nice to meet everybody. Jay Bellows. I run a energy storage company in Waterbury, Vermont. Relatively sizable for Vermont, not relatively sizable for the rest of the country, but I've been a big advocate of trying just to keep talent in Vermont for a long time. Built a lot of apprentice programs and other programs to kind of keep talented Vermonters in the state as best we can, and have been fortunate enough to have a lot of meetings with the commissioner and deputy commissioner, and feel like this is a really great moment, and I think an opportunity for us to grow in the state. There's a lot of stuff we're going to learn today. As Matthew Burowitz goes through information, I think everybody will be intrigued by. I certainly was. But I'll keep this quick because I know I got to talk again according to the schedule in a couple minutes. But excited to be here, and I'm as someone said earlier, I think the opportunity is big as we've dropped from 60 something members to 27. I think it's really a nice time to have a good impact on the state, and with the diversified group that we have, I think we'll be well represented. So nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Jay.
Yeah.
There's two more people on Teams that I'd like to introduce. Is Marjorie still on?
I am on. My name is Marjorie Zucita. I work with the U.S. Department of Labor as part of the Employment and Training Administration. I enjoy hearing each and every one of your backgrounds to understand better where some of the efforts and initiatives are going to come to fruition and have a benefit for. So I thank you for allowing me to be part of this. I'll be a fly on the wall for the rest of it and just listen in. Thank you.
Thank you, Marjorie. I'm glad you're going to be listening. Thank you. And Mr. Ramsey.
Morning, everyone. Jay Ramsey. I am the Director of Workforce Development here at the Department of Labor, a position that I've been in for a couple of years now. Prior to that, I worked at the Agency of Education as the State Director of Technical Education. A little bit about the division. We've got about 80 people. They're spread across the state in our 11 regional offices. I'm responsible for the offices. We also run a no-cost job board, vermontjoblink.com. We support people with barriers to employment. We're responsible for outreach programs that serve veterans and migrant and seasonal farm workers and opportunity youth. And we are also operating the registered apprenticeship program in this division. Nice to virtually see all of you all. I look forward to working with the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. We could briefly introduce, do you want to jump right in? And yeah.
Totally up to you.
Okay, well, let's do
Do you want
that.
me to jump in?
Or we can have.
Let's go around the room.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Kristen Rango. I'm here at the Department of Labor, Equal Opportunity and Accessibility Manager, helping to make sure that our wheel programs are accessible.
Thanks. Rowan?
Hi, I'm Rowan Hawthorne. I'm Principal Assistant Legislative Liaison in the Commissioner's Office. I'm here as portable today. Just doing the program.
Thank you, Rowan.
Hi, I'm Paul Ferraro. I'm the one-stop operator. I work for Educational Data Systems, or you may hear them referred to as EDSI. I work out of the Burlington Job Center. I'm here to support the board and to help manage the one-stop system. I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you, Paul. And
There's
that,
a couple more people
are there that I
online.
missed?
Yeah, just guests. I see Amanda is on. I know Matt Barowitz is on.
Well, yeah, Matt's going to be doing this.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, Matt, do you want to say hi?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Barowitz. I'm the Director of the Economic and Labor Market Information Division. Thank you for having me here today, and I'll be speaking with you about some data.
Very much. And who else done this?
Amanda.
Oh, Amanda?
Good morning, everyone. Amanda Wheeler. I serve as Governor Scott's press secretary, and I'm also the liaison to the Department of Labor and the State Workforce Development Board. And it's great to see you all this morning.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay,
Great.
so we're on time too, believe it or not.
Yeah, we're actually
Yes.
a little early. so-
According to our agenda, we're going to have a few remarks from the commissioner and the deputy commissioner. Let them introduce themselves and talk about history and where we're going future.
Yeah, so for everybody, my name's Michael Harrington. I'm the commissioner for the Department of Labor. To my right is Kendall Smith, the deputy commissioner, and she'll say a few words in a moment. I'll give a shout out for Lindsay Curley's decision-making abilities because Lindsay was the one who hired me. So she obviously made a great decision there. I started with the department as Lindsay's deputy commissioner in 2017. And then when Lindsay moved over to the Agency of Commerce, I filled in as interim commissioner right at the start of the pandemic, and then was appointed commissioner in June of 2020 and have served in that role since. So really just want to give a little bit of background so everybody kind of has the same basic understanding and playing field here. And weave together some parts that other people brought together. So the board in its construction actually comes from the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So there is a requirement under that act. And the act, the federal act actually funds a number of state workforce programs from the Department of Labor, the Agency of Human Services, to the Agency of Education, and then weaves through other programs across the state. And so within the Department of Labor, one of our largest programs is our Workforce Development Division. That division is probably about 90% federally funded, maybe a little less than that. But as part of that, that funding comes from the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act, or WIOA, and you'll hear that term used often. So when you envision your role on the board, there are kind of two sides to that coin that do interweave with one another at different times, but there's the federal side, which comes with its own compliance and regulations and ensuring that the board is doing what it needs to under the act. But then there's also the local or state functions of the board. As Jay mentioned, the department operates 11 job centers across the state. At the federal level, they're called American One-Stop Job Centers. One of them is considered our federally certified one-stop job center, and that's our Burlington office. But the requirements of the job center flow throughout all 11 of our job centers. And so one of the functions of the board is to ensure that the job center system is functioning the way it's supposed to. And so there will be times where this board comes together to perform certain functions under WIOA to ensure that the one-stop job center system is functioning the way it needs to. For example, one of the early roles of the board will be to certify the state's job center in Burlington and the job center system. And that is something we've been needing the new board to be formed before we can take that function on. And then there are other pieces of the board, like the state under WIOA operates its eligible training provider list, or ETPL. There is a role for the board to play in the authorization of the ETPL and the training organizations that are on the provider list. So that's just some examples. There's a couple other functions the board has. And then on the state side is really the mission that the board is given from the legislature to the governor on growing and strengthening Vermont's workforce. And that's everything from working with youth to ensure successful transition into Vermont's workforce and to retain that workforce in Vermont, to also looking at different ways to grow Vermont's workforce. Again, I've often considered workforce a lot like a bucket you're trying to fill from a hose, and the bucket has holes in it, right? And the water going into the bucket represents the workforce you're trying to create. So you can continue to try to turn that spigot and get more water in the bucket, but if there are too many holes in the bucket, you'll never fill the bucket. And so holes in the bucket could be things like affordability or housing or childcare or whatever those challenges or barriers we think about when we think about what is really blocking or preventing us from realizing our goal in workforce. And so we have to do those two things in tandem. We have to be able to plug the holes and turn on the spigot more at the same time. And so again, as we work through the different priorities and strategies of the board, in my mind, that's how I envision it. But at the end of the day, the board and the members are really representative of Vermont's workforce and education training community, and looking at different either positives or challenges that the state faces, and trying to focus efforts and maybe funding and direction in specific areas, and providing recommendations to the governor, to the legislature on what would be most impactful in growing and strengthening the board, or the workforce in Vermont. So again, as some mentioned, this is a reinvigorated board or reconstructed board from a much larger board. Some of you are returning members, so thank you for your continued service. And some of you are brand new, and it's really exciting to see some new faces from different areas that we've interacted with in the past. So thank you to all of you for your willingness to serve on the board. It is extremely meaningful, and the work is definitely mission-driven work. So from me to you, thank you for everybody's participation.
I'm not sure there's much I can add to that. But just for the record, my name is Kendall Smith. I'm the deputy here at the Department of Labor. I just joined actually this department in January, so I'm relatively new here. I believe Sabina and I started on the same day in our new roles. Previous to this, I was in Governor Scott's office for the past 8 years as his Director of Policy and Legislative Affairs. So like the commissioner said, it's nice to see some familiar faces, nice to see some new faces. And then prior to the governor's office, I worked for the statewide Chamber of Commerce as the government affairs director under Betsy Bishop, for those that may have known Betsy from her long state service here in Vermont. So like I said, I don't know if there's anything I would add to that. When I was in the governor's office, I worked to support this board with the prior executive director, Tori Bondolillo, for those that knew Tori and Abby when they were in these roles. And I'm excited to see where the board goes next, and we'll be supporting Sabina.
I should say I'm from southwestern Vermont, Bennington, Vermont, so I'll give a shout out to all the Southwest Vermont representatives on the call.
Thank you. Just before we move on, did anybody have any comments or questions they wanted to offer up before we move on to hear from Senator Clarkson and Representative Marcotte? Okay. Senator Clarkson, would you like to go first, or?
No, I actually think our chair of SOCWED should go first. So I think Chair Marcotte, Chair Clarkson to Chair Marcotte.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I yield.
So again, really appreciate everyone's willingness to serve on this new constituted Workforce Development Board. I think, you know, when we were working on this whole project with the SOCWED, of course, Commissioner Harrington, Deputy Commissioner Smith, Jay Ramsey was there. We had, I think, a very good working relationship with the SOCWED. We had many people joining us as well. My vice chair, Representative Granning from Jericho, participated, not as a member, but on the side, as well as Ellen Kaler and Cameron Wood when he was working for the Department of Labor. So, you know, when we started this project, we knew that we needed to have an executive director that was not part of the Department of Labor, but was someone that answered directly to the governor. And so we worked all together to come up with the right person. I think the governor has chosen well. I know Sabina started off hitting the ground running, so certainly appreciate all her efforts. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I'm sure this first year is going to be a lot of work on just getting everything prepared for us to go forward. But the board, as we looked at it in the structure with 27 members, it doesn't mean that we can't have subcommittees. We want to make sure we have subcommittees. There were a lot of good people, a lot of business people that were on the 63-member board, but we want to make sure that everyone that serves here, especially our business community, has the opportunity to participate and to help create and make changes going forward. And I think with a 63-member board, I think there were some issues where businesses really didn't feel like their participation was making a difference. And so we really want to make that difference. There's an opportunity for the State Workforce Development Board to work with the legislature and work with the Department of Education, Department of Labor in changing career technical education for the state of Vermont. So there's a lot of things that are out there that we can do and make a difference. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone to get us to that point. Senator?
You're muted, Senator.
Oh, you're muted.
I'm being so good. I'm trying so hard to be muted. Thank you for yielding to me, Chair Marcotte. I just have to, I would add the following, which is our objective was to really elevate workforce, to streamline it, make it more effective, make all of our time work more efficiently, and that we felt our contributions actually made a difference. Our chief objective in SOCWED was not only to review and restructure and reframe the State Workforce Board, but was to create the Office of Workforce Strategy and Development. And I am so excited to see in this office the coordination of all our workforce efforts, not just the state, not just those siloed. Our whole objective is to de-silo workforce and to coordinate it in one office so that we have one office speaking to the legislature and working with the governor, obviously in conjunction with DOL, but one place where everything, both the needs, and the hopes and dreams of workforce are all brought under one umbrella, so that we have our state, non-state, nonprofits, all our workforce partners working together. And particularly in the legislature, we need particularly one voice. In addition to DOL's voice, we need one voice speaking and asking, setting priorities, bringing those priorities to the legislature, making one financial ask, and really being the voice of workforce in the legislature. So this is very exciting for us. I think for Mike and Kendall and me and the two Mikes and Jay and Ellen, who I assume is here somewhere. I would just like to say, I think in some ways, in addition to having Sabina on board, which we're very excited about, I'm really excited to have seen that Kendall got so jazzed about workforce development that she has moved and committed her work life to being the deputy commissioner. And to me, that speaks volumes about the opportunity in workforce and how exciting it is in this moment. So I think we're all really pleased to be launching this board and this office at the same time. So thank you all. And it's just very gratifying to see this go from an idea that we talked about in the hallway to it materializing with all these wonderful game people. So thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you very much. And that's a perfect segue into hearing what the board's going to be doing.
I think we already heard what the board's going to be doing. I won't go too long. I think, the commissioner and deputy commissioner talked it through perfectly. As someone that runs a big business, I don't have a ton of time, right? But I want to make sure that I wanted to dedicate myself to this because as we've seen, those that have lived here for a while, Vermont can be a tough landscape for business, and it's a tough landscape for building business, growing it, and then keeping it here in particular. I think that's one of the things that's been really tough to watch over the last, I'm going to date myself here, but 25 plus years is watching really great innovation and businesses grow, sometimes get acquired, sometimes leave, but ultimately find their way out of the state. And so I think, I'm pretty passionate about trying to grow that and keep that here. I think from the board's perspective, as I kind of think about what's happened here between last year and this year, I'm really focused, and the commissioner's gonna laugh because I say this literally every time I see him, is I don't want to be a rubber stamp, right? I don't want this committee to be a rubber stamp. The goal is to have an impact. I think, as Senator Clarkson just said, giving direction. We have a diverse group here, bringing in all the opinions, all the thoughts, and then bringing it to the to build direction, build programs, and have a big impact here. I think a lot of the people here are running businesses. Everybody here knows how difficult it can be to find people. I'm still floored by the 1,400 number from UVM. I was on.
That's the low side.
I know that's a little scary. I was on the board at the hospital for a long time, and I know it can be a challenge. And so, anyway, I just, for us, we have a schedule on the back, and we can talk about all that stuff after. But really, just excited to be here and kind of direct this in a way that's going to be really supportive of Vermont. And again, I'm looking at Matthew just because the data he's about to share, I think is going to be a little eye-opening in some areas, and not in the way that most people think, believe it or not. So. I think we have some work to do in Vermont, certainly, to keep our businesses growing, to find ways that we're going to keep them here, to keep them solvable and moving forward and profitable. But I'm excited to be with everybody and kind of help direct that forward. So thank you all for being here and giving your time, and look forward to working with you all some more in the future.
Thank you, Jay. And Matt, you're getting an extra 8 minutes. So next up on our schedule is Matt providing a presentation on labor market information and data that we constantly update, if that's fair to say. And I'm going to turn it over to him, and I bet you he's going to want to share a screen, right, Matt?
That is correct. Yeah, thank you so much, Sabina. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and thank you all for your time. I am going to share a screen. And I'm getting a little echo. I don't know if anyone else is. No, great.
Yeah, somebody needs to mute, I think.
Yeah, we can also mute the room when you kick off here.
Okay. Yeah, that's already a lot better. Thank you. So the slide deck should be up. I have some housekeeping to take care of before we get into this, but there's a couple overarching things that we're going to talk about. I'm hoping to set the stage just in big brush strokes and kind of tee it up for future conversations that this board is going to be no doubt looking to have. So I am the director of the Economic and Labor Market Information Division. We are a small team of 11 within the Vermont Department of Labor. We're predominantly federally funded. The bulk of our funding comes from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and they pay us to collect, compile, and release economic data consistent with federal methodology, so that the data that we release here in the state of Vermont is directly comparable to California or Alaska or even Guam and Puerto Rico. There's actually 54 state territories that make up the US data systems within the US Department of Labor. So we are all using the same questionnaires. We are all using the same analytical methodology. And most importantly, we're all using the same definitions. So when we're talking about nursing, or excuse me, let me rephrase that. When we're talking about a registered nurse, that is a consistent definition. If we are talking about a construction laborer, that is a consistent definition established by the federal government for occupations. We also use industry data, so manufacturing, healthcare, construction, and the like. But this gives us data that's comparable to the rest of the nation. And there's a lot of strengths in that we can be very transparent about what the strengths and weaknesses are of this data. There are some limitations in that it might not go as deep as we want to in many cases. But for the most part, pound for pound, this is the best data that is available on the labor market, whether it's US or at the state level. So I do get a small pot of money. About a quarter of our budget comes from the Employment and Training Administration. And I highlight that for a couple of reasons. One, they provide us resources to have a website, to do occupational projections, which is outside of the Bureau of Labor Statistics core program functionality. So we actually look to the future and see which occupations are going to be growing or in demand. They give us resources for presentations, for internships, for special projects. And in addition, and most important, this grant specifies that my team are actually to help Sabina and this board in any capacity that you see fit. Certainly, we are a small team, so we have limited capacity, but do not be afraid to reach out to Sabina with asks, questions, things that you're interested in. We do accept homework, and we do our best to produce it in a timely and consistent manner. So just want to highlight that. Again, I think you've heard this enough today, but I do recognize that you all have busy lives, but you all have tremendous expertise. And this is a big issue right now in Vermont, the workforce issue. And you being here to contribute those expertise, ask tough questions, be curious, and lend your thoughts is critically important to this work. So thank you. Last piece of housekeeping here. The data is coming from the Vermont Department of Labor, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Census Bureau, unless otherwise noted. We talked about the consistent methodology and definitions. Hopefully I don't get into sharing anything of opinions. I will turn those over to Commissioner Harrington and Deputy Commissioner Smith for those type of things, or Sabina is always good for some insights into the information that I might not be able to share beyond the information and data. Please ask questions, raise your hands. I will pause every now and then if I'm laying out some big things just to see if there is something that comes up for the people, but this is meant to be a discussion, and that's the beauty of a smaller board. We can have this time, and we have the extra 8 minutes, so we've got to fill it, or we don't. But so I wanted to at least ground us in some things we're not going to talk about before we start talking about what we are going to talk about. I mentioned these concepts earlier: industries, occupations, industries being construction, healthcare, retail, occupations being cashier, nurse, construction labor. We're not going to be talking about those per se today. We have a short period of time, and understanding, kind of having prior conversations with prior boards, having conversations with Jay, the chair, and Sabina. We really wanted to kind of focus on something else: people. Like, the workforce issue is not, our current challenge is not that there isn't enough demand for workers right now, it's more of a supply issue. And so we thought we'd start with the concept on the supply side. I'm an economist by training, so if I leak in any of those technical terms or just sound really jargony, I apologize. But When we talk about labor supply and labor demand being what employers are looking to hire, looking to recruit for, we have an abundance of that, and we are going to talk about that. Labor supply, people to fill those positions, that seems to be more of the issue. And in hearing some of the board's personal comments today about recruitment, about engaging youth, all these things are part of that labor supply question. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And something that I won't talk too much about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for this group, it probably will come into your work when we talk about people. And I think Commissioner Harrington kind of teed off some of this. People have needs, whether that's food, shelter, transportation, childcare. The list goes on and on as far as support services, potentially even mental health, could be elderly care for a family member. All these things are in everyone's day-to-day lives that impacts their ability to join the workforce or participate to the full level they'd like to. So I will casually step away from real people because I want to talk about statistical people. I feel very comfortable talking about statistical people, of which there is a boatload of them in Vermont, and we're going to talk about these statistical people. Some of these, the data we're going to look at is actually based on actual counts. Some of them are based on statistical methods, meaning surveys. And I'll try and do my best to distinguish the two. So from the US Census Bureau, and I hope that we can kind of use round terms today. I'm trying to move away from specific numbers. Delusive exactness is what we call in the business. And we'll talk about why delusive exactness seems to be kind of troubling us here in Vermont. Ballpark number, population 650,000. This is a big number and one I didn't expect to see so quickly. It's come up a lot. This is the highest Vermont's population's ever been. Let's put that right out there. I'll repeat that in a little bit. There is a question about whether Vermont's population has grown in the last year, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Ultimately, the way population counts get built is every 10 years we do a census. The United States, as part of our Constitution, counts every American every 10 years, and that data is very, very good. In between those 10 years, there is a survey and sampling done to estimate state populations. And the US Census Bureau does a great job. It's the best estimate out there. But for Vermont, we tend to be a little quirky. We do have a high concentration of post-secondary students, AKA college students. And that kind of, I've always wondered if that troubles the US Census Bureau and their ability to project our populations. And we have seen, as many of you are aware, a lot of mobility lately. So initially, we have this strong 2020 number, and then since 2020, it was showing population growth year to year. However, they kind of revised the estimate 2 years ago to be much higher. So actually it looks like our population went down, maybe 400, 500 people, best estimates available. What that really means to me is that the margin of error is actually like 2,000 to 3,000 people. So we're right around kind of where we used to be pre-pandemic. We were always like, did we grow? Did we not grow? We're right around that zero line plus minus. So let's just call it 650,000, the highest population Vermont has ever had. Wherever we're at right now is the high. And that's an important point that we'll bring through in this discussion. Before I move on, 650, are we good on 650 questions? I've kind of jumped into a lot. Does anyone want to say anything before I continue?
Can I just say one thing quickly? So
yes,
that because something that we always struggle with a little bit in southwestern Vermont is looking at whole state population numbers and contrasting them with regional differences, because parts of the state, not this part, have been growing very fast. So it tends to kind of downplay the population in other parts.
Yes, 100%. I love that point. Statewide numbers or national numbers, they do not represent everyone's experiences, whether that's even by regional definition or even as we look at some other metrics about wage growth or whatever it might be, unemployment, for example. That's not everyone's unique experiences to their region, their socioeconomic characteristics. Excellent point. I will share some state data in this presentation, but as Sabina kind of alluded to, our data is always growing and evolving, and the scheduling, they did not consult me, and they did not have to consult me in the scheduling of this meeting. But what was absolutely uncomfortable for me is that all our sub-state data is going to be, all the historical data for sub-state Vermont is going to be re-released this Friday. So I have a bunch of data that I can't speak to right now, and I look forward to future conversations where I can give you a full update in accounting. We will look at some sub-state data, but it will be clearly labeled current, and in 5 days, it will be out of date. So we will talk a little sub-state today. Appreciate that point. Thank you.
Matt, we always try to make it as difficult and awkward for you as possible.
Yes, keeps me on my toes, keeps me young. I appreciate that. All right, so we're starting with this base number of 650,000, and then you could say, well, how did we get here? We are growing. This is a high number. It's the highest it's ever been. I'm going to highlight the excellent work of the assistant director in the Economic and Labor Market Information Division, Kevin Stapleton. Kevin has been working side by side with me for going on like maybe 12, 13 years. And one of the ways we figure to harness his skills is to do these periodic Kevin's Corner. They can be kind of random, maybe every 2 weeks or every month or so. And one of his recent ones was on in and out migration. So U.S. Census Bureau data took a look at where people are, how in migration and out migration were affecting Vermont's population. And what we have here is a count from 2014 through 2023, and then some big totals at the bottom. The far right-hand column is ultimately the net migration. Did our population grow or shrink based on migration in and out? Because if we take a quick step back, as of lately, we are having more deaths than births. So it is not, our population is not growing because we are having lots of babies. That is not the case. We have a low birth rate. We have had a low birth rate for a decade plus, maybe even as much as 3 decades. But we have a low birth rate. And, as of recently, there has been more deaths than births per year. So that's going to put downward pressure on our population. So our growth has to be coming from somewhere. And as this data indicates, it is coming from in-migration. So we are gaining more people than we are losing. One of the things that I want to highlight that's not captured here is in Kevin's write-up. What's most important is that the margin of error around this data is massive. So even looking at that 2023 total of net migration of about 7,600 people, the zero number is captured in the error bounds. So it could be between 0 and 14,000 people net migration. But I think we feel that the population has been growing as of recently. So whether it's 7,600 or 4,000 or whatever it is, this is again part of that U.S. Census Bureau's data, best available, but does have some pretty big margin of errors, especially when you take it down to Vermont's level because of our small sample. So in migration, quickly we'll take a look where we're losing them to. This is where Vermonters are moving out to, the 6 biggest largest out-migrant receiving states with the annual average. So we lose about 3,000 people to New York a year, about 2,500 to Massachusetts, and it goes right down the line. Some of this to me looks like college-age students exiting. We've done a lot of research and looking at, and there's a few times a year where Vermont either comes up number 1 or number 50 in the country for XYZ. We're a small state, and so we can come up on those lists quite frequently. One of them is there's a major moving company that does a survey every year of like who's moving where based on their data and statistics about rental vans and things like that. And Vermont is consistently number 1. And I think it has a lot to do with college-age students moving in. And then as they come here, they stay, and then they kind of some stay permanently, some filter out over our course of time. And we can talk about that at subsequent meetings. We've done some research into that population to see what their intentions are. The big conclusion is, on balance, normally that college-age population stays greater than it does leave in terms of it is a net positive, which kind of, again, emphasizes the net immigration happening. Where we are who's sending people to us, again, kind of looks like college-age students in some ways. We see Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire coming right up there. Abroad comes up. So people, about 2,300 people are coming from outside the US to Vermont. And then you see New Jersey and Florida. And so some tremendous overlap there between Massachusetts, New York, New Hampshire. And some of that is people wanting to get into the big city. Some of the people wanting to get out of the big city. So what else do we, questions?
Is that a broad number of permanent residents or seasonal workers or both?
It should be not considering seasonal workers. That is a great question. And again, the margin of errors of these are large, and the fluctuations year to year can be notable. So I'm going to move forward here to a topic we're well accustomed to as it relates to our population. Again, we're still at that population level, and I will take it below that in just a minute here, but let's talk about the age of the people in Vermont. So we have two lines on this graph. The 2010 number is the blue line, and the 2022 number is the green line. This comes from a Joint Fiscal Office put together a nice little graphic. They recently updated it, but I didn't think it materially changed it, and I thought the picture actually held nicer here. So I kept the 2022 data. This is not a percent number. This is actual counts. How many people are 1 year old in Vermont? How many people are 3? How many are 18? How many are 40? And so you can actually compare it. As mentioned, our population in 2022 is much higher than it was in 2010. So there are more people in Vermont in 2022. But when you look at it by age cohort, you can see from 0 to 18, there's actually fewer Vermonters that are in that age cohort. We get to that population. I've spent a bunch of time already talking about that college age population. Looks very similar. The next cohort there, the prime working age, this is a big part of where there is reasons for hope about what's going on in Vermont. That is an important cohort of people, and it is up that 25 to 40. Those could be people starting families, people in the prime working age. And so that is some really positive news coming out of this. But once you look at from 40 out, the graph really just does this 12-year shift. Pretty much every bump you can see in the blue line, if you move your eyes out 12 years, you see that bump where a lot of aging in place going on. And this has been a conversation that's been going on for a long time. Some call it the graying of the Green Mountains, whatever you want to call it. We are an older state when you look at the rest of the US, but this is not just a Vermont issue. It is a US issue. This is the aging of the baby boomers and that prime working age cohort that, that 40 to, where it kind of peaks around 40 to 54. Those are the baby boomers moving into older ages and ultimately into retirement. But there does seem to be, and in talking to real estate agents and in talking to other people, there does seem to be a population of people that are 55 plus that are moving into Vermont. I know the big narrative in Vermont is that people leave here to retire elsewhere, but there is a lot of smoke around the conversation that there is a whole other type of person that is older, later in life, that is moving here and establishing themselves. So that is something to consider.
Matt, the question for you as I look at this, obviously the contrast between the green and the blue between like 45 and 75 is obviously the shifting of the baby boomer generation.
Yes.
When you look at like the 83, 84, that significant population, is that the tail end of a previous generation, or is that relocation of older adults to Vermont? Why? Because it's obviously so much higher than the rest. I'm just curious if it's generational or something else.
That's a great question. And I don't know the answer to that. I do think it might be the in-migration that we're talking about. And, when I ask people that are in this business around either demography or real estate agents, I love to talk to because they have good insights of the people and clients they're working with. I am hearing a lot of older people moving in to be closer to family, maybe their grandparents, things like that. Quality of life, certainly the outdoor recreation. But it does seem like, to the commissioner's point, there is this like up towards the older ages. And certainly, yeah, and some of this is that we are living longer, and so we are having healthier outcomes later in life too, which is a positive contributor in that regard. Okay, all right, let me checking time. Okay, I got 15 minutes. Now we've talked about the population, record highs. Now, I'm not going to get into this, and unfortunately, it's pretty sterile terminology that our federal partners use and borderline offensive, but this concept of civilian non-institutionalized population plus 16 in Vermont, meaning 16 years of older. So if we looked at that population of 650, where my team's work really begins is we want to look at this population, meaning not in the military, not in prison, not in an assisted living facility, over the age of 16. This is the population we study because this is the people that can potentially work. This is our theoretical available labor. And from here, this 550 becomes our labor force. So we're at 650,000 people, record high, 550,000 civilian non-institutionalized population. Here is our labor force, is the blue line. Those are the people saying I'm either working or actively looking for work. Our labor force peaked back in 2009. And that coincides with a recession, and it coincides with the leading edge of the baby boomers, are getting later in life, but there was a big economic downturn there. This was a doozy of an economic downturn where asset prices, whether it's housing or stock market portfolios, really got decimated. And so people that might have been thinking about retiring here or due to economic necessity came into the labor force saying, the primary wage earner in my household is losing hours, losing income. I need to find a job to help, or I'm going to leave school because I need to make money to help my family or my household. So we have this record high labor force here. And then as you see, it's been shrinking. COVID happened. We've recovered our labor force since then, but we are still not at peak labor force. We're about 5,000 off peak labor force. So we have record high level of population. We are not at record high level of labor force. The red line being employment, we are at record levels of employment. So as far as our size of our labor force is concerned, we have a very tight labor market, meaning the gap between the blue and the red line is your population of unemployed, and we'll look at this. But our current levels of employment have never been higher. So we are at high levels of employment. Here is the sub-state data that I wanted to highlight. As we break in to look at the labor force outcomes. And again, this is current in red county labor force data. All new information will be released this Friday, and look forward to updating the board on these changes. But the big takeaways coming out of this are that there are places that had peak labor force even before the state, like Caledonia and Bennington peaked in 2006, before the state peaked in 2009. And they both have double-digit decreases in their labor force since their peak. It is most magnified in places like Essex County and Rutland County and Windham County, where they are 14% declines in their labor force or more. And there are counties that have had declines in populations, most notably down in the southern four either have near population declines or population declines to go along with this. And so to the earlier comment that though the state has high labor force, high employment and high population, there is a concentration of this, most notably in Chittenden County, Franklin County. You can see that they are above peak levels since their prior peak, and their change since 2020 has been positive. So everyone since the recession at least is above where they were in a recession, but they are not back to where they were before. So this is that state data that I'm looking forward to digging in deeper, because I think it tells a richer story and it starts presenting the opportunities that might be available to the board to investigate.
And Matthew, the change since 2020, that was the huge downward spikes, right? So it was really bottomed out. So the change since 2020 is based on from that.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. That huge dip there associated with COVID, though COVID was a the deepest recession we'd ever experienced, it was very short. And you can see that little pink line. And, you know, from an economic standpoint, from a statistical standpoint, the big, thick red line or pink line from the 2007 to 2009, because that was such a long duration, that was actually a worse recession for us because COVID, quickly the economy reopened and people came back. But you can see even here that Rutland just got back to where they were before COVID. They're now like 8 people higher in their labor force than they were prior. That's the old data. We'll see what the new data says. All right, I'm going to take this down. Oops, was there a comment?
No, I don't know if it's in this deck, but this does somewhat track with our public school enrollment as well, right? In terms of counties where we seem to have youth as a crop, right, a future workforce versus counties that are seeing steep declines in the number of pre-K-12 students they have in terms of the workforce that we are growing here in Vermont. Is that an accurate statement, generally speaking?
Yes, I think so. Deputy Commissioner Smith, I think that's a great point. The states that have had some of the largest declines typically profile as some of the oldest. So off the top of my mind, thinking of like Essex County, Windham, Windsor, Rutland. So the population that is there is aging in place, and there does seem to be either out-migration or they're not sufficient in-migration to offset any natural demographic downward trends. And then again, that older population base would translate to fewer children, to your point that they would be more pressure on the student population as well. Okay, this is when we were looking at this, if you subtract the labor force, the blue line front, and the employment line, that gap is the population of unemployed. This graph just quickly shows what the blue blob is, the number of unemployed people in the state of Vermont, the pink line being the unemployment rate from 2001 to current. And you can see there's actually 3 recessions in here, the dot-com recession in early 2000s, which didn't impact Vermont very much. What's sometimes called the Great Recession from 2007 through 2009. And that was a doozy. I never thought I'd see a recession that bad. You know, we had 25,000 unemployed people at one time, or nearly. But the COVID recession obviously spiked off the charts, where official number of unemployed by the Bureau of Labor Statistics definition, close to 50,000, unemployment rate of 14%. And as many of the VDOL, Department of Labor employees in the room can attest, this doesn't even scratch the surface on the number of people we were helping with benefit programs. I think it totaled over 100,000 at one point, meaning 1 out of 6 Vermonters was basically in communication with the Vermont Department of Labor associated with some form of benefit program, whether it was traditional unemployment insurance benefits or something like pandemic assistance. But you know, those things are all in the past now. And when you see the blue blob drop all the way down, basically to historic lows, we are up off of historic lows with a 2.6% unemployment rate, a little over 9,000 unemployed. But that 9,000 unemployed is still well below historic levels, and that unemployment rate puts us second lowest in the nation. I think we're tied for second lowest in the nation, with North Dakota and South Dakota being lower than us. So we have a very low level of unemployment, and this is, contributes to that tight labor market. Now, I'm just taking a quick aside because this is the Bureau of Labor Statistics definition of unemployed. Are you actively looking for work? Are you willing to accept work if offered? Those type of questions. This is unemployment insurance benefit claims. And so while there's 9,000 people that are unemployed, using that economic definition, when it comes to unemployment insurance eligibility and people applying for benefits, it's less than 4,000 currently. So this has 5 years of data on it. The 2020 and 2021 have been removed, otherwise they'd be off the charts. 2019 was the lowest level of claims we'd ever seen. Now you drop down, post-pandemic, it's gone even lower. 2022 through current are tracking very well below that 2019 level. And so it is not a situation where you'll sometimes hear a common refrain of people who don't understand this data saying, well, if everyone just got off on unemployment and found a job, things would be a lot better. We're showing that there's less than 4,000 of those people. And many of these are seasonal. You see the seasonal components. These are the 52 weeks of the year, meaning the winter is the busiest month for this. And as it goes into summer, it can drop down to as low as 2,000, 2,500 people on unemployment insurance benefits. What's the only anomaly I'll just point out is in the green line, the 2023, the summer. You can see what the flood of 2023 did, the flooding that impacted much of Vermont. There's a spike up in the green line, kind of getting back to those 2019 levels. But otherwise, other than that flooding, the 4 most recent years have kind of danced around each other week to week based on how the calendar falls. So we're approaching the close here, and I'm going to have about 5 minutes for questions at the end here. So this is the blue blob I talked about earlier. This is just number of unemployed people. 2011 cleaned up, so it's not so messy. Just number of unemployed people. Let's take a look at job openings. This is the number of openings in the state of Vermont, where you can see that for a big period of time, we hit that 20,000. That's kind of the green bar. We just got back to that level. And so this data, like some of the other data we see, can be a little jumpy. So I'm interested to see what next month's release is going to look like. But because this is a big kind of jump up from our prior months, we thought we were kind of sitting in that 15, 16, 17,000 job openings, and then all of a sudden 21,000. So we'll look at this data in a month or so and see if that data is holding. But when you take these two data points, you combined unemployed persons with job openings, putting job openings in the numerator, we get a ratio of 2 to 1 currently. It's like 2.3, I think. 2.3 job openings for every unemployed person. This is again a graph 2011 to current. The red bar meaning there is more unemployed people. There is less than 1 job for everybody searching, and those dates correspond with those recessions. That deep recession that is in 2007 to 2009. But even in 2012, 2013, we were at the Department of Labor hearing industries, construction, manufacturing, starting to say, we can't find workers. And we could start seeing that there was going to be a big shift happening soon. And you can see as the job postings started increasing through 2015 to 2018 and 19, how the availability of labor starts, the number of unemployed is going down, the number of job postings going up, indicating tight labor market conditions. The COVID recession happens, and that puts everything upside down again for a moment. But then quickly, we're well past that 2 to 1 ratio for a while, exceeding 3 to 1, 3 open jobs for every unemployed persons for a time period. And this is, again, that conversation I think many of you are looking forward to getting into. Now, quick recap. We started 650,000 people. We take it down to 550,000 people. Of those 550,000 people, in round terms, we're talking about a labor force about 350,000 people. We looked at employed, unemployed, and then UI eligible. I'm going to leave it with this conversation and not in the labor force. We actually just put out a Kevin's Corner on this, and it has much more detail than I'm going to go into today here. But let's take a look at those 200,000 people that are not in the labor force. Of the 200,000 people not in the labor force, right smack dab in the middle is retired on this chart. 108,000 of them, over 55% of them indicate they're retired. And I do want to highlight that retired is not a constant state of being. People can come in and out of retirement as they choose. But this is an important thing. When we talk about how do we get more workers into the workforce, you need to think in terms of, or one can think in terms of, who are the people that are not in the labor force? You can either bring new people in that want jobs, or you can look at the population you have to say, well, what is their current situation and how do we get those people in the labor force? Well, 200 of them, of the 200, 108,000 of them are identified as retired. So mature worker programs, being created with part-time work opportunities and flexible schedules, that might lead to some movement there. But from there, the categories drop down really significantly. Other at 33,000 is the next biggest category, at 17% of the population. Other, again, this is a federal survey by the US Census Bureau. We don't have additional context or detail on other. It's just other. But if you're interested in things like childcare, you can see that 8,000 people are statistically identified as being impacted as they're caring for children not in school or daycare. So programs that would help support those individuals might produce that. Caring for the elderly is a big population here, 6,000 at 3%. And I highlight those two because they flip-flop. When you compare this data to the US, more people in the US are not in the labor force due to childcare, and less people in the US are not in the labor force due to caring for elderly. Again, underscoring that point we've talked about of Vermont's older population. So that is a big part of it. This is what we, I'm sure people are going to want to spend some time, and I'll make the link to the Kevin's Corner available to Sabina to be distributed to the board so you can kind of read and let this marinate. But this is the 200,000 people that they're not in the military, they're not incarcerated, and they are over the age of 16. They're just not in the labor force. So coming soon, future discussions on industries and occupations and any topics that you're interested in as a board. I highlight this version 6 of our continuing partnership with the McClure Foundation, which highlights occupations and jobs in demand here in the state of Vermont and the training pathways associated with achieving those. We use these with young people and job seekers all over the state, and it's been a very successful partnership. So with that, I want to thank you for your time. And again, I am here as a resource. My team is here for a resource to this group. So thank you.
Can I just ask one question, Matt? And that is, beyond that retired group, do we categorize by age ever? Like, 18 to 24, that kind of thing, are not in the workforce?
Are you asking the data of people who are not in the workforce? Is that information available by age? Is that your question?
At some point or another, yeah.
I doubt it.
No.
It is an experimental data set put out by the U.S. Census Bureau currently. And I think those margin of errors, just even at a statewide number, is going to prevent the Census Bureau from doing anything deeper. I could look to see if the U.S. has that information, because I'm never beyond using US data and then tweaking it based on what we know, because we kind of know the directions up and down. So we could kind of plus minus put our thumbs on the scale on US data. And so I will do that as a follow-up task item to see if that information is available.
There's always headlines like that, millennial generation is practicing retirement, meaning they're quitting their jobs and stuff. So I just was curious. Yeah, that's all.
Great. Thank you. Good question.
saw-
And I see, oops.
Oh, sorry. No, I didn't raise my hand. I'm sorry. It's Chris also. I saw Marjorie noticed the same thing I did, which was the third largest population. There's those that were sick or disabled, with about 18,500 people, 9.4%. I know we've talked about this on the board in the past, but that's definitely a group worth targeting.
100% agree, and certainly there's been a program called the Retain program within the Vermont Department of Labor, working to help people remain employed after an injury or get back into the workforce after an injury, and that's been an extremely good program to have to help us focus on that. So thank you for bringing that up, and I hearted that comment as well, because it is a very important population. I see, Jill, you have your hand up. Oh, Senator Clarkson, maybe?
Yes. I just think it's also that sick and disabled opportunity is an opportunity for us to improve safety at work. I mean, they are sick and disabled. That how much of that is preventable, and how much, what can we do to improve that figure in terms of not having it happen in the first place?
Yep, 100%.
This
Jill,
is Jill.
you've been very patient. Thank you.
Yes, well, I just pretend to be patient. I'm not actually patient. I was really interested in that the data you have showing people not in the workforce because they're caring for someone elderly. I'm interested to see that we're going to hear more about occupations in the future. And one thing I believe is that we don't really have a clear way to measure the non-licensed people who we need in the long-term care workforce. So the personal care attendants, that at least in Vermont, there isn't a way to identify how we're doing in that workforce. We have home health aides, but that's different. That's not the same thing as an unlicensed PCA. So I'm just going to be curious when we get to that, if there's anything we can do in Vermont that would, if there's a classification that we're not able to use for any reason, or if it's just something no one is measuring. So I just wanted to put that out there as something you'll hear me ask the next time we're talking about occupations.
Great, thank you.
Jill, can I just, we're doing the OPR bill right now, the Office of Professional Regulation in the Senate. That may be, it actually may be the perfect timing to ask for a sunrise on that. A sunrise review on that profession.
On that profession. Yeah. I mean, I would want to talk to other healthcare providers about how they feel about gathering more data or having a certification or something that would create. But I'd love to talk to you about that. I'll catch up with you.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Matthew, on the numbers that you had for the 2+%, unemployment rate, did I hear you say that that is reflective of people who are willing, wanting, and able to work, or is that's the case, right? So as we go towards that last slide and we see, over 100,000+ not working, that's not inclusive of those numbers, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep, 100%. I will just highlight for the board, it is the federal definition of unemployed, that you've looked for work in the last month. You're willing to accept work if able, and willing and ready and able to accept work if offered. We do study the other populations, like people who haven't looked for work, they've given up looking for work, what are called discouraged workers. But those populations are very small, relative historic. So that, like, for example, it's not an issue of word not getting out there that there's not jobs. There's not like people giving up because there's no jobs out there for them. That population is on record lows right now. So we sometimes have information that gets outside the traditional unemployment rate as we get interested.
Feel free to jump in if you have more information. Is that often when we see that number, we think there's just that number of people sitting on the sideline, and that's a constant, like it's the same person, right? But that number is representative of the population, but that the individual turns over frequently, right? So I could say on average, there's 4,000 people collecting benefits at any given time, but that's not the same 4,000 people, right? So the average length of time somebody collects benefits is roughly around, 10 to 11 weeks, maybe 12 weeks, right? So again, it's a statistical number that shows kind of that threshold, but that doesn't mean it's the same 100,000 people or 50,000 people or 4,000 people for this extended period of time. And that's why it's hard to identify who these people are, because it's not constantly the same person.
Well said, Commissioner. Thank you.
Anybody else before we move on? Just for next steps before we hear from the governor around quarter of? Yeah.
Matt, it's Kendall again. I'm sorry, everybody. I won't do this every meeting. But the staff here knows that this is my MO. So if I was trying to simplify this, looking at some of the key numbers, if we have about, let's say, 9,500 people that appear to be ready, willing, and able to accept work on the bench, but it looked like we had about 26, maybe 1,000 open jobs. So even if we employed everybody that's currently on the sidelines that might be willing, able, and ready to work, I'm taking retirees out of this or people that for whatever reason cannot, we still have a deficit of about 10,000 plus people that we need to recruit into the state to meet our current labor demand. Is that a generally high level accurate statement?
Yes, 100%.
All the Vermonters that are out there on the bench that might be willing to work, we still need 10,000 plus to meet current demand, not counting if we want to grow our businesses or key priority sectors.
Correct. Yep, that's well said. And, in talking to employers, I think sometimes it's amazing how much they say they have capacity to bring people on, but they're still trying to fill 2, 3, 4 core positions. And before they can even get those on, they can't even think about further expansion. And so I wonder how much those open job postings don't even capture potential.
That's what I was thinking, Matt, because we visit employers all the time who are like, I can't fill the 20 positions I have, but if I had an unending amount of workforce supply, I could add, 3 more lines to my manufacturing plant, right? So they may only be hiring for 20, but they could actually add 100 if the workforce was available.
I just imagine of those 9,000 that are willing and able to work, some of those have significant barriers to being ideal candidates for jobs, right? So like in healthcare, I can't hire somebody with specific convictions. And so I guess I'd be curious to know, of that 9,000, do we know sort of what it's comprised of in terms of other reasons why they've not been able to find jobs?
Unfortunately not. I can take a deep dive into that to see if there's any additional information. I have been seeing that federal partners have been releasing more experimental data sets. So like we kind of just found this one about who's not in the labor force recently. But it would be good to see, because unfortunately, to my knowledge, no, there isn't a lot more detail on that. The survey just kind of falls off of like where, the questions just, once they're categorized as unemployed, that's kind of the end of the survey. We might have like educational attainment level might be a good proxy for some of that. That's a possibility.
I was also going to quickly share that while there's 9,500 that are not working, I think there's also a large number that are underemployed that could go into our industries as well. I don't think it fully closes the 10,000 gap, but I think there's a vast number that with job skill training programs could go into industries that are in high demand. I also think a small fraction of the number, it definitely won't close the gap, but is in our corrections workforce as far as entry-level positions and what that looks like too.
Great points. Thank you.
I think a big one too that we have to be really aware of is whenever there's a deficit between openings and available people, what it does to business. So even Ronnie, as you just brought up, people being able to grow into new roles. Well, who's going to backfill those roles, right? So that when you run a business and you're hiring people and there's not enough people, you end up paying more. It's just what happens, right? So you're fighting for people, they may not have the qualifications. I think one thing in particular that was worrisome as we looked through the slides that Matthew did was the age gap. I believe it was between 39 and 60, where we had a significant drop in professionals. Well, if you're looking to fill a position with a certain amount of experience, you want 20 years, you want 18, 15 years, that's the area that you're looking for, and they're just not here. Like this is a perpetuating problem that we have that's going to, continue to show itself. And not, I don't want to go on and on, but as you look towards the housing issue right now, right? Like Sabina came to my office the other day and was down in the southern part of the state, and they were building these new homes. And she's like, it was really great, except guess what the starting price was? $590,000, right? So, who's going to work at, a manufacturer making $25 an hour and be able to afford that? You're not. So that means the manufacturer has to pay $40 an hour so that person can afford their house. Now the manufacturer's cost of goods go up incredibly, and they're not competitive with the rest of the country, or even worse, overseas, right? So this is a perpetuating problem, and there's a lot of, I think, worrisome data kind of built into the presentation that we saw for sure.
I'm wondering if you have any links or thoughts between in-migration to Vermont, either from other states or from abroad, and how that factors into all of this, while also contemplating the housing challenge.
Oh yeah, there does seem to be a direct linkage. I think, as Jay was kind of pointing out, it's there's a tremendous tension and a chicken and egg problem of, do we build the housing and they'll come, but then where do the workers come from when we're trying to build the housing? And so this in-migration thing tends to be a challenge. And we're seeing that there are, some other outside forces seem to be making Vermont more attractive to people. that is also increasing the pressure on the local communities as it relates to housing. And that's kind of why I started with that Maslow's hierarchy, to kind of underscore that the board has a broader view than what I do. So I don't have information about the actual human needs of the people. But there is that big tension, can't be underscored enough.
This is related to this discussion. The governor and the legislature created the workforce expansion program in some legislation a couple of years ago. It got put on pause. We're bringing it back. So I'm sharing in the chat a link to the announcement for the applications for the program. We're actually in the application process now. The goal of the program is, at a high level, connecting job seekers with jobs, but at a more detailed level, it's a person from the Department of Labor working within the selected community on a project to help find the workers that we're talking about in this discussion and connecting them to jobs and helping to identify where what additional supports might be needed, what additional strategies we could be working on as a state to employ the other people that were in Matt's slide.
Anybody else have anything to? Yes, please, Amanda.
So this might be slightly off topic, but my brain is just firing on all cylinders. So bear with me, guys. I'm really excited. But is there work being done in how we promote available jobs to people and how we get that information out there? I know as a young person in Vermont, especially as an entrepreneur and as someone who's worked a ton of different jobs because I was just curious about different areas of work within the state throughout my lifespan. How are we engaging with Vermont's younger population to even tell them what's out there? And I don't mean just high school age kids. I'm talking 20s and 30-year-olds and even early 40s where people are coming into the state. How are we engaging with them?
Do you want?
Can I take a stab?
Yes.
So we've kind of at the Health Network have been like, we're just going to take matters into our own hands. So for instance, a week and a half ago, we rented space at the Expo Center and invited all the departments. We invited all the high schools. We got kids there, and that idea was in part spun by something that we talked about in the workforce development group. My last go round was, can we have a state job fair, right? You have the Expo Center, it's like fair days, and you've got the construction part, you've got renewable energy corner, you've got healthcare corner, and you are, well, I'm focused on high school students in particular right now, in part because I'm a mom of some kids that recently graduated from high school. So I'm familiar with that population, but everybody could be invited, and it would be mandatory that high schools make sure that busloads of kids are getting there and they're learning how to do respiratory therapy and doing a trach or making leather bags or whatever. So that is like my big dream. But the Department of Labor does put out newsletters that advertises what openings are available. Of course, Indeed, these kids know to go, anybody knows to go to Indeed or do a Google search. So sorry, I took up too much time. But
No, you're great.
No, you're
great.
yeah.
On top of that, what if it became like an online job fair that was a continuously
both.
running thing, right? Like,
Right.
oh, I can't make it to the job fair, but I feel like something online would be a much better, or,
Right.
Easier accessible, right?
exactly, something that could be there, year round versus just in particular
Yeah.
days and,
yeah, my 2 cents is the state we should be putting money into doing that so that, we paid out of our budget for the UVM Health Network to do that because that was important, but like, we all have a need for it. Shouldn't state money be going into that? So again, my 2 cents, feel strongly about it, but
Do you, excuse me for interrupting, do you want to talk? Maybe not everybody knows
Oh,
about
sure.
my.
Well, while we are discussing this, there's absolutely more that we can be doing and be doing this better, just in terms of what currently exists. I put in the chat, and my co-patriot Jay might want to add to this, our list of our upcoming job fairs that we're doing regionally this spring that actually start this week. There are at least 2 of those, and Jay, you can course correct me, that are specific for high school students as they relate to apprenticeships and the trades, which we're kind of excited about doing that really specific targeted outreach and twist on a traditional job fair. And then your comment about something online, not necessarily the same as a job fair, but there's this really great website that's operated by Advanced Vermont called My Future VT, which in addition to the Vermont Most Promising Jobs brochure is something that's promoted to high school students to explore what are the jobs available in the state, as well as what is the education and training that goes into that, and where can you find financial aid, trying to be kind of a one-stop shop. If I want to be a registered nurse, how do I do that? Like,
Or
all
I
right,
think I
here's
want
the,
to be.
I think I want to be,
Yeah.
yeah, here's
And
what it
it'll
involves,
give you
and
information.
here's where I can go and
mandatory
financially.
for the schools,
Yeah.
because the
Yep.
thing
Yeah.
is, if it's
Yeah.
just kids deciding, trying to motivate
Yeah.
a high school student to get jazzed from going to
I
like
know.
a state career fair, unless it's during the school day,
Yeah.
their guidance counselors are doing that. They have a bus to take them there. Again, just
Yeah.
being a parent
Yeah.
of people that are in that age
Yeah.
group.
There's probably a way we can do it more robust, because there are specific kind of, like how you said you did it with healthcare. We were at one last week for the Vermont Retail Lumbers Association that almost all the CTE centers attended. Ronnie on the call through Vermont Works for Women, does Women Can Do, let the CTE students register in, which Ronnie, you need to do that for adults, which I know you get all the time. As well. It's super fun, but there is a way we can, I think
the
about
kids
how to
take
do
a
that
day
more
off of school. They get a
holistically.
day off of
Yeah.
school on that day.
Yeah, how to
and
do that more
everybody has to
holistically.
go.
Yep. I don't know.
So I'm gonna say one thing before a couple of hands go. This was the reason why the office was created, so that we would grade all of these different things together and that there'd be a central clearinghouse. I know Senator Clarkson loves it when I call it the clearinghouse. But it will, that's the goal and the hope, and then that's all I wanted to say there. And please jump in, whoever wants to. I don't know who is left. Jay, excuse me.
I just want to, I put something in the chat. So we have a weekly jobs newsletter. That's where we're promoting 5 jobs from each of our 5 regions. 1 job in each region is a professional job, and the others are generally entry level. And we have also started a monthly career exploration newsletter that, we don't have high school students signed up for it, but the target audience is school counselors and other professionals that are advising young people about their jobs. So we take 1 job and highlight from the McClure Foundation Most Promising Jobs brochure. We also have a quarterly apprenticeship newsletter that's going out. These are all new things that we've started in the last 6 months. So those are efforts to inform the public at large. We also do, like Kendall was saying, closed job fairs, apprenticeship fairs, where we're helping young people in a closed setting understand how college and registered apprenticeship compare, what's different, and so that they can make a more informed decision. And we're also trying to more widely promote and expand the use of registered apprenticeships. It's a little bit of a slow process because it's employer driven and it's employer based. So those are some of the things. There are many other things, but for the sake of time, I'll just shut up for now.
Looks like Chris, you're next.
Yeah, this is out of left field. I know there's be some challenges with it because Jay had mentioned about the cost of housing, which I totally agree with. But in terms of our tourism, we talk about people coming to Vermont to ski and go through foliage season and so forth. Maybe something to add on to that would be come to visit and maybe to stay and talk about maybe some of the employment opportunities that are up in Vermont that might encourage people while they're here for whatever recreational activity they're going through, is maybe think about, there are possibilities for us to maybe move here.
We actually have that, Chris. We have that.
We do.
And we just need to maybe put more resources behind it. But Heather Pelham, who's our Commissioner of Tourism and Marketing, actually has been ahead of that actually for a number of years now. She created a program called Stay to Stay, and she has a whole Think Vermont marketing program. Kendall probably knows more about it than I do, and Lindsay's still on. So Lindsay Curley can take credit for it. But they are, there's already an opportunity to grow in programs that are already on the ground and working.
It'd just be interesting to see how that's
Yeah.
helped maybe with people migrating here.
It is, and then anyway, Lindsay, or maybe we could have Heather join us actually at some point on the state workforce board, and because here's an example of de-siloing and working together. She can be partnering with Jay and with Sabina so wonderfully on exactly this.
So you're saying I'm brilliant with this idea then?
No, actually, I'm saying you are, and you're behind.
I'm joking.
You're
I'm joking.
The state, I mean, Heather is really terrific, and ACCD's done a great job on getting ahead of this. It came out of our whole effort to, of course, attract remote workers and relocate workers. So our committee has been very supportive of this for a long time, since 2017.
Can I just say, I feel like what this is highlighting is we have a group of really high level, amazing employers in the room, and we don't all know what we're doing. And so promoting and sustaining that promotion of what are we doing, I think continues to be a growth opportunity and an opportunity and a challenge to aggregate all these efforts and then better promote them to all of you and obviously everyone that's not in this room, so that you know what tools are currently out there. And we are tracking some of the outcomes of these programs, and maybe again reporting on those to the board on some sort of regular basis would be of interest if we could pull some sort of template together to show, are these, again, what's the return we're getting on these investments that we're doing with state dollars?
Yeah.
I mean,
Amanda,
to that point, Kendall, it might be great to have Heather and Joan, whoever's going to take over for Joan, talk about the results of those remote worker programs and the relocated worker programs and the Think Vermont and the Stay to Stay, because they've been effective, but that would be great.
Amanda, did you want to add something?
I did, just really quickly, and then I'll stop. But my thought process in all of this is not only recruiting folks from out of state, but as someone that grew up here in Vermont and I left for college and moved around a lot, I moved back to Vermont because I love it here and want to help the economy. And there's a lot of people like that here in rural pockets that are looking for this information, that don't have the resources to get there and don't know about different programs within the state. Even myself, I'm learning every day of new opportunities out there and different programs that are already there. So getting that information to rural pockets in the state is really important, whether that's talking to the town clerk and in these other areas, just notifying people that these exist is huge, because there are a lot of people out there wanting jobs that don't know where to find them.
Yeah. Thank you. We have one more person with their hand up, Brian.
Yeah, I would, this is Brian Kravitz at Central Vermont Adult Education, and I would urge all of our partners in business and industry to reach out to your local adult ed provider. We have 2,200 students in Vermont, and these are people who are coming to us looking for skills so they can get better jobs. Many of them want better jobs. And if you're willing to work with us, we can do what we can to really get people into those positions and really maybe really be specific about the skills we're providing to those students so they can be really focused on what you need. So please reach out to any of those 4 adult ed providers in Vermont. Please reach out to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We're very close to the end, a few more minutes, and unfortunately, the governor is not able to join us today as we had hoped, and he's totally disappointed about it, but we're gonna make him come next time. And so unfortunately, that didn't work out, but before we adjourn, so to speak, you saw on the agenda, we had a list of some meetings. The next one we're planning on is on May 19. That meeting, we're hoping to have those meetings in person, that's the plan. And then hybrid for folks who can't make it in person, but you know, it will be nice to connect, you know, above, you know, total body instead of just above the shoulders. And that meeting will focus on a couple of things, one being our WIOA federal funding and learning more about that so that we're in a position to understand what our federal requirements are in terms of certifying Vermont's work in that area. And that'll include a presentation from Marjorie Susita and Jay Ramsey and team. And then also you have homework, right? We have homework that you want to talk about the homework?
Well, I mean, we'll send, we're gonna build an email group too, that we're gonna send emails out to everybody as well, just so that people have a way to connect when we're not having meetings as well. But really the thought process is there's so much, right? I think the last half hour since Matt's presentation is a great example of how much input we're gonna be able to have. But just like going from 63 to 27 people is gonna be really productive in what we can do. We also want to keep the goals kind of directed, especially the initial ones, and make sure that they, you know, we can have a handful of goals that are achievable and kind of trigger us and give us a little bit of gas to keep going and get stronger. So kind of the thought process is coming into the next meeting with like 5 goals from everybody that they think are important, achievable, and then as a group narrowing all of them down to a group 5 goals for our first kind of tranche as we run through responsibilities and goals at the board. So if you can come to the next meeting with some ideas in that light, I don't think that's going to be very difficult for this group. So let's have that ready for our next meeting, please, so that we can kind of have some achievable steps that we want to run through.
And you said you're gonna put it into a.
Yeah, we'll send,
email
I think what we'll do after every meeting is just send out an email, kind of running through what's happened, kind of as a goal letter to say, this is what was talked about. This is what the plans are moving forward. Here's the next meeting, just so that everybody has it in writing as well.
That would be great, because some of us can't see what's in the chat. I have no idea how to do Teams chat. So I just hope Jay's going to send me everything he's been putting in it. That would be great. And I hope out of the goals, we can then create the working committees that might actually be advancing some of those goals in between.
Exactly. And then we'll start to have executive committee meetings in the summer, once a month.
Right.
So it was really great to meet everybody, see everybody, and we'll have an in-person meeting next time. And thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Sabina. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
This was exciting.
Yeah.
Thank you. That was a great meeting.